However, some in Congress are saying not so fast, Mr. President. Joining us this morning, Pennsylvania Republican Senator Pat Toomey joins us. Senator, good to have you back. Good morning.
Morning, Carl. How are you?
Good. This development has implications for your state, clearly. What do you think of it so far, what we know?
It's mixed, right? There's some good news for sure. There's also some, developments that I would consider counterproductive. I need to see the details. That has not yet been released to determine on balance, is this better than what we have today or not? It's certainly good that we've got better intellectual property protection than we had. We have longer protection on biologic, for instance, than we had under TPP. That's good news. Apparently, the Mexicans will not be able to use regulatory mechanisms to prevent a lot of our ag products from getting into Mexico. Dairy, they won't be using the geographic indicators that we think of as just just generic names, whether it's cheddar or Munster cheese. That's important in Pennsylvania. So I can point to a number of specific things that are improvements, but I'm also concerned about this quasi-sunset. We've got to see the details on that. This 16-year horizon, the watering down, the shrinking of the investor-state dispute settlement mechanism is troubling. I want to see exactly how that's going to work. And then, of course, they've introduced country-specific rules of origin in the auto sector. It's only one sector. I mean, it's the wrong direction, but it's not the entire manufacturing sector. So it's going to be a matter of weighing the good and the bad.
Senator Toomey, why is that the wrong direction? I mean, I'm looking at a statement here from you as well, where you say you raised serious concerns around arbitrary wage mandate for the auto sector as well. I see that, and I think, for years we've seen the offshoring and nearshoring of American manufacturing jobs to places where there's cheaper labor. The idea that you're going to ensure more U.S. jobs in the auto manufacturing sector, I would think that'd be a good thing, no?
No, it's not a good thing for the government to dictate wage rates. It's not a good thing for the government to restrict trade. America has had the freest trading environment in the world. Our economy is more open than any other, and we remain the world's #1 manufacturer. Manufacturing output in the United States is at an all-time record high. So clearly, we can thrive, our manufacturing sector can thrive in a free trading environment. Putting restrictions like this are, in my view, counterproductive, will raise the cost of automobiles for American consumers and create an incentive to make cars somewhere else that's not subject to these rules. So I don't think this is constructive. But again, it is focused on a single industry, and I've got to see the details on this. I should point out there's a big issue that is very much outstanding, and that is whether or not the Canadians choose to join into this. I don't think that the president, I don't think Congress can pursue a bilateral agreement just with Mexico and the U.S. under the Trade Promotion Authority that gives expedited procedures. So it's going to be really important to make this a trilateral agreement if we're going to have that expedited process.
And if they don't get that expedited process, what does that mean then?
Then I think it means a 60-vote threshold in the Senate and potentially long delays in taking up the legislation.
And when are you going to actually get a look at those details that you've mentioned and where some of your concerns are centered? How long is that going to be? Do you know?
I don't know. I know they're working on it. I know I speak with Bob Lighthizer, our trade rep, regularly. He's very forthcoming about this to the extent that he can be. So I don't think he's intentionally playing hide the ball here. I think in some cases they're still drafting. So we'll get a notification, we're told, from the administration this Friday. Maybe that will have some more detail. I wouldn't be surprised if it does not. And we might be waiting for some period of time, on the order of even as much as 30 or 60 days before we start to see some specifics on some of these controversial issues.
And has Lighthizer in your conversations indicated the likelihood in their perspective of getting a deal done with Canada?
I think it's fair to characterize Bob as being generally optimistic that there will be an agreement with Canada. And in fairness, I think the big contentious issues were more between the U.S. and Mexico than they were between the U.S. and Canada. So I think that's plausible, but it hasn't happened yet. So we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Senator Toomey, I want to dig into the legality of a potential bilateral deal between the U.S. and Mexico just a little bit more. I realize that if Canada's not brought on board based on the fast-track process right now, that this probably couldn't go through that. It would require 60 votes in the Senate. But it could actually get done. It might just take longer, and it would require more from senators, correct?
That's my impression. That's my understanding. In the absence of TPA, Trade Promotion Authority, you could still pass legislation enacting a new trade agreement, but in the absence of TPA, it would be ordinary legislation, and so it would be subject to all the potential obstacles like a filibuster that ordinary legislation is subject to.
Do you think any of the developments regarding Mexico or Canada have any weight on how things will go with China? And as an add-on to that, have we warmed up to the notion of ag subsidies helping us weather a long trade war with them?
I haven't warmed up to that. Look, I think it's a bad idea to have the government subsidizing any industry. Now, it's a bad idea for the government to engage in a trade war, which results in certain sectors being retaliated against. But it's a compounding of flawed policy when we start forcing taxpayers to subsidize some sectors. For instance, there's the entire category of industries that utilize steel and aluminum. They've been put at a tremendous disadvantage. Are we going to write checks to all of those folks as well? I mean, I don't know where this all ends. So, no, I haven't warmed up to that approach at all.
Senator, we'll be having this discussion for at least a few more days, and probably beyond that, but we appreciate your time and your guidance on it. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania.